Ricky. So very grateful for this. And yeah, it's really wonderful. I'm actually here. I'm in Germany right now. So I came to visit. Actually, one of the speakers that you had on previously, I think Rick and arranged, Satyananda Swami. So he's actually here in Germany. So I just came to spend some time with him. So yeah, it's really good to be here. And so there's a place. So this is an apartment that I'm staying in, but there's a place nearby called Simalachalam, and so he's giving some seminar there. So it's just a really wonderful place. Yeah. And how's everyone else doing? How are all of you? You're all muted, so I can't see anything.
We're great, Ed. And firstly, a very happy birthday to you. Echo everything Ricken said. Extremely grateful to have you in our lives as such a close soul family member. And even if you, well, actually, of course, I am not biased as a mom, but I always knew there was something special about Soham, and it totally validates it even more, knowing that he shares a birthday with you.
Especially
great
because
souls coming through.
Especially because you're his parents. That's why it's special. I'm lucky. I'm aligned with him. It's not the other way. It's not the other way around. I feel like, okay, there's some hope for me yet because Soham's got the same birthday as me.
Ed has been. Sorry, it froze a bit at my end. I'm saying I'm surprised that I didn't pick this up earlier, because I'm sure you were part of one of the kids' baby showers.
It was Soham's.
It was Soham's, and he was due on 6th of May, and then he was born on 4th of May.
That was it. That explains it. That explains.
And then we, but before we finalized the name, we ran it past you like a week after, a few days after.
Yes. Wow, isn't that amazing? Yeah, it's really good to see you all. Did you all just get on the call? Because I know normally you start at 12 UK time, right? Rick, and you're muted.
Oh, I was just saying I messaged everybody.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, yeah. Okay, that explains it. Tiffany, great to see you. Thank you for joining. Mohit, Rasta, great to see you. Are we expecting a few others, or?
We can go ahead and get started. It looks like Enver and Paul, he said he has kid duties this morning, so he's not able to make it, but it looks like otherwise we can get started.
Okay. So, Ricky, did you have to?
Yeah, I'll just turn my camera off. I have just a couple of things I need to do, but yeah, you can go ahead. Okay,
no problem. So, as we can get that done. So first of all, actually, what I want to do to begin, because we often talk about many different things. One of the things I'm concerned about in a positive way is around application. What I'm going to ask everyone to do, and I'm going to ask you to do this briefly to begin with. We're going to go person by person, so everyone's going to answer this question. So we've discussed a lot. I mean, we started this series in August last year, right? So August, September, October, November, January, February, March, April, May. So it's actually close to a year what we've been discussing. And I'm always concerned to make sure that there's something that's resonating with what we're doing, something that we're able to be taking away. So the first one we're going to do is we're going to go person by person, okay? Now, what I'm going to ask you to share, and you have a choice here, it could be something that's particularly stood out to you that you've been resonating with from anything we've discussed so far. So anything over the months that we've covered so far. So it could be something that's resonating with you. And if it is something that's resonating, then just unpack that for us for a while. Like, what was it that resonates? Why is it that resonates with you? That this particular element resonates with you specifically. So that's one option. The other option is you can share, actually, let me go back and add one thing. When you talk about what resonates, it could be something specifically that we discussed, or it could be thematic, right? So when I think about everything that we've been discussing, what really comes to me, and this was interesting because I spoke to Satyananda Swami earlier today about one thing. He's familiar with someone that some of you will be aware of. He's a very famous, I guess, personal development guru, teacher, and he was also a doctor, Dr. Joe Dispenza. So he's very well known on the internet. I know that, he's been interviewed in many different places. And so he has a certain guided meditation. And Marge told me about that guided meditation it was years ago. And I actually played the guided meditation, but I tried it a few times and I found it didn't really do anything for me. So when I saw Sechin and Marge today, I mentioned that to him. I said, but maybe I need to try it more and so on. And he looked at me, he said, what we have to see what works for one person may not work for someone else. And as I was thinking about that, I was thinking about myself, I was thinking about leadership, and the key thing that I've been taking away from all of our discussions over a long period of time, because I'm always looking for essential truth. The key thing that I've been taking away is personalization. It goes back to some of the research I've been doing on different personality styles. And I keep seeing this pattern in my own life and in the life of other people, that what works is when we personalize, right? So the way that one person is able to focus may not be the same technique that helps another person to focus. The way that you can lead your project and your company and your team and be successful, the principles may be the same, but there may have to be a slight difference in the way that you lead, because you're an individual and you've got a unique set of individuals and maybe a unique industry that you're doing business in. So when I think about everything we've discussed thus far, the underlying theme for me is personalization. And so one of the commitments that I've made for myself in my life is to really try and understand what helps me as a unique individual to be at my best, right? What helps me to be focused? What helps me to make the biggest contribution? And it's helped me to understand, because a mistake that I made, even when I was managing, I was in one role, a previous role, I was a manager of a team. I was of a team of about 3 or 4 people. And I can honestly say, I didn't know at the time so much about personality styles and so on. So I didn't know how to get the best out of them. And I was reflecting through our discussions that if I could do that again, I would lead that team in a very, very different way, because I'd understand what they can do and what they can't do, and I'd rearrange the work accordingly. So this is my thing about personalization. That's a thematic thing that I've taken away from our discussion so far. So I'm going to ask you to share either something you've taken away. It could be a detail, it could be a theme, or you can share something that you've been practically applying. At any point, anything we've been discussing, heat map, communication, whatever it is, something that you've been practically applying and that you found to be useful, okay? So we're going to go person by person. I'm going to throw it out to you because I'm also conscious that sometimes certain people have to leave early, and we completely understand that. So given that fact, who would like to go first? So something that you've been reflecting on or applying. Tiffany, I saw your hand up. Feel free to unmute. And by the way, when Tiffany's sharing and when we're hearing from each other, again, think about how this may be useful for me. Is this something that I'd like to apply? Is this something that I may want to contemplate? Is it something that could be more applicable in my area of responsibility? Tiffany.
Thank you. And so over this time, one of the things that really resonates is the most basic principle of being clear with my intention, of trying to figure out what is it that I really want, and how, from a work perspective, I guess is what I'm thinking of the most. But what is it that I want to do? And I guess work, but that's my life purpose, right? That's part of why I'm here. But that clarity of intention, and it seems like we keep coming back to that again, it's kind of narrowing in the focus, because the more I'm clear, the more I'm going to be guided. And I realized, that I've been all over the place, and, we have these sessions and I keep coming back. What is it you want? Why are you not getting it? Because you're not clear with where you are. And the other thing, and it's so funny that you would talk about personalization, but for me as a physician, so, being clear with my intention, and then this realization that came to me that I need to meet people where they're at, and that, that kind of came with it the last month or so. And it's like, because everyone is on a different level. They're on a different level of their healing journey. And I don't talk about healing journey just as in their physical health, but their spiritual health. Like, they're all on different levels of consciousness. And, I was trying to think with my work, like, am I going to leave like Western medicine and go and become, practice more, healing? But I said, Tiffany, you're in a place, you are on this journey for you to be able to meet them where they're at and guide them to the next level. And so those have been the themes that are resonating with me. It's been wonderful.
I'm making notes because that's really powerful. So being clear in your intention and meeting people exactly where they are at to take them to the next level. Okay, brilliant. And again, this is why we're doing this, because I know that in this group, I'm as much a student as anyone sharing, right? So I also want to learn, because these are things which are thematic and that I can also apply a bit more effectively in everything that I do. So thank you for kicking us off, Tiffany. Who would like to go next? So it could be something that you've been reflecting on, a particular detail, technique, or a theme. It could also be something you've been applying. Ronnie, I saw your hand up. Please feel free to unmute and share.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to look at the book and pick, because I want to cite something, but generally, like a takeaway, and I think this happens with me with most studies, book clubs, workshops, seminars, is I might not be able to articulate the detail, the point, or exactly what was said, but a takeaway is around how we operate as a leader, how we're driven, somewhat operating in line with a particular moral compass or a mission, right? That is connected to the greater good. So when you look at the kingdom and how to rule and run a kingdom, how to solicit advice from your advisors before you execute, and predominantly say like the Brahmins, where you have this committee or this group of people that you kind of defer to when you want to make some big or critical decisions. And also how like getting to know your weaknesses. What are your weaknesses as a ruler, and how do you, as a team, where you're weak, allocate and empower somebody where that is something that natural to them, that is a strength for them, right? As we build a team. So I think generally that's been a thing, and I remember in an earlier conversation where we were drawing parallels to standardize leadership. Was in our organization, we have values. We have 3 pages of values, and those 15 values are what we refer to, and then those are created in a moment or space where our thought is like, okay, what do we really stand for? What do we want our brand to be or not be? And it sort of, I can draw parallels with what we're doing there and what we're learning here around the king and say his advisors, right? So I think that's a general takeaway from here, is how I conduct myself in our business, or and actually not coming from a controlling perspective, right? So how do you empower people within the team, and collectively we win, rather than thinking I'm in charge and I'm going to do it and I'll show you how it's done.
Wonderful point. There's a lot, you shared a lot there, right? So you talked about how do you operate as a leader, the moral compass, how to get advice before execution, which is very interesting. So the idea of having advisors like brahmanas or teachers, people who can input into the decision making. And then you also talk about knowing your weaknesses and making sure that you have team members who can actually complement, because wherever we're weak, that person's actually strong. So them working together. You talk about what do we stand for, so knowing what we want our brand to be and not to be. And then you talked about how to empower people so that you win as a collective, rather than just the leader being the controller who just tells everyone what to do. Excellent.
Yeah, and without, like people often ask me when we're in the coaching business, they ask like, who is your coach? And whether intentionally or unintentionally, each year we're trying to or I make it a point that at least 3 months in a year or 6 months in a year or across the year spaced out, I'm part of a program where I'm learning, I'm challenging myself, I'm growing. And inside of the space of us joining this book club, which happened by chance by Avni sort of, recommending us to join. And then we came in and found out this guy called Ed Anoba, who we know. And then we, in that space, from FitBank, we've launched a whole leadership body. This whole program has come. And as we're creating, this whole new company has been incorporated, where we're training coaches and getting them certified. And all that has happened, like for the first time, partnership with one of our coaches. And there's an option for other other coaches to step up and own equity or some form of options over time. And that's launched and pre-launch. We've already had close to 30 people sign up for our batch one. We've run our first leadership retreat. So it's happened inside of the time frame of us being part of this. And that may or may not have even been underway, or the intentionality wasn't there around the time that we started. It was a conversation, but the happenings have happened inside of this time frame.
Wonderful. And I love this point you made about being that you intentionally put yourself in situations where you're learning and growing. So you're teaching and you're also learning. I really believe strongly in this idea that the best teacher is the best student. The more that we're actually receiving, the more it gives us power to give properly. So I really want to and wishing you great success in your leadership initiative. It sounds fantastic. Like most of the things like all the things you do, to be honest, whenever I hear about it, it's like, wow, these guys are really pushing the paradigm. So thank you so much for sharing that, Ronnie. I saw, Ambika, you had a hand up though. Something you wanted to share, maybe off the back of what Ronnie was saying? Or
No, it was actually answering your questions, which was waiting for once Ronnie was done, but not, I don't mean to interrupt.
Okay, no, Ambika, you should go next. I think Ronnie's finished, so we'd love to hear from you. What are you taking away?
So I think the whole concept of servant leadership was the first time I heard in this book. And it's such a powerful way that captures almost polarities, which is the world we're raised in, servant is a lower caste. And in this book, and in fact, the first time I heard of servant in a very empowering way was when we run interviews for getting coaches on board who complete our programs. And the last question I do the interviews for people we bring on board as coaches, accountability coaches. The last question is always, who are you for humanity? And for most people, that's not an everyday conversation. It's not a chai conversation. And this one person paused and her response was just one word, which is a servant. And I was so moved by that. And this was 2 years ago, but that conversation in the interviews always stuck with me. And then to have this book, our first, several weeks and months with that servant leadership title is such a contrast to leadership as we see it in this day and age, which is more to do with accomplishment, the I, rather than the service and making an impact. So that has been a great expansion of the servant leadership, or just leadership in a new light. That's one. The second is, I think, kind of echoing what Ronnie was saying, which is there's so many things we covered in this book that was very reassuring. I mean, there's a lot of new education, and equally there's a few things that were reassuring to know we're on this path in the team we're building, in the programs, in the leadership training we provide. And that I feel is kind of like the universe saying you're on the right path, so keep going. So that reassurance, reaffirmation has been really good. And then a very recent example, just last week, when we were studying, and I cannot remember, or 2 weeks ago, Ricken made us read 3 verses. And there was one verse which was on how discipline of the body is also to do with how our words impact another, in terms of like the intentionality of our language. And I may completely be mixing up the subtitle, but the key message I got from that was, how do we get to be so mindful of the words we say so that it's not creating a negative impact in another? And at times, I can think of many occasions where my intention is to have the other person get how crap they've been. Like to really have them understand and see you messed up, or like you didn't do this, or something wasn't done by design, was the intention is to be right and make another wrong, versus just being so responsible. And we have a value, which is speaking to people's greatness, but that's not always practiced. And so reading that recently, it's been on my mind. So I'm so present to that with stuff that I'm about to see out of reaction, which is this actually gonna hurt another's emotions? And if so, then why utter those words? So that's current for me.
Fantastic. So what I picked up is that, so the crucial thing about being a servant leader, I love this point, this question that you ask in interviews, who are you for humanity? It's a very, I mean, it's a great question actually, because what, even how people react, it's not just what they say, but how they'll respond to that. Because for many people, they don't think about being anything for humanity, it's just myself. And the fact that someone may have an answer there, or you can see that it enlivens them, how they respond can give you as much information as what they actually say. I think that's a brilliant question to get a real insight into people. And then I always find this interesting, and you've touched upon this, the idea that as we've been going through this, where there's a reassurance. I think that there are many people who would operate in the world in a much better way if they were part of a group that reinforced the good. But I think what happens in many cases is people will try to be good in isolation. It may not work. There's no one to reinforce it. So they think, well, if I start operating in a more cutthroat or less ethical way, then that may be better, because after all, when I try to do the right thing, no one says anything. And if it goes badly, then basically people give the impression I'm on my own. And I think that one of the powerful things I found in this group is that reinforcement. You know, we're trying to bring out the best in each other in terms of a real, and you talked about mindful, a real intentionality around leadership, a real quality to leadership. And we can have honest conversations in that regards as well. So I think that's a very, very powerful, it's a very powerful point. And then you talked about the kind of discipline in terms of being mindful about the words that we use, which I think is absolutely critical. You know, so I was listening to something, there was a class someone was giving recently, and they said that, you know, when you if an arrow hits you, then that may hurt for a day, right? You got some scar there, but the words, unkind words, can leave a scar for decades, you know, or a lifetime. So I think the words, I mean, yeah, words are weapons. You know, they can either heal or they can absolutely tear people down. So thank you for that reminder. It's very powerful, very timely as well. Who would like to? Yeah,
One more I wanted to add, please, Ed, which is very top of mind for us, because we have, as we shared before, a few close mates going through addictions here. And the point about how even those going through addictions in some ways have almost replaced one religion with another, it's misdirected religion, was kind of really mind-blowing, because they've created those disciples, the devotees, the rituals, and God, in essence, with whatever they're doing that's created the addiction. Was like, it all comes down to the same part about how we're seeking wholeness in something, and because there's such a divorce from divinity, then it starts showing up in materialistic things. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think Ricky has put the points in, yeah, addictions being misguided religion. Yes, great. Yeah, absolutely. And I love the fact that, you know, as you said, it's got its own kind of rituals, it's got its followers, etc., etc. Yeah, so I guess you could say that the quest of human existence is to find the healthy answer to the questions of you know, of the fundamental needs for wholeness, for higher states of consciousness, to find that the original and healthy answer, the answer that fulfills that need in the deepest, most lasting and complete way. And to the extent that we don't find that, we use all these substitutes. And as you said, materialism is really that whole category is a substitute for needs which are ultimately, and I know that B.T. Swami writes about this, is a substitute for needs which are ultimately anti-material. So that's a very, very powerful point. Thank you for sharing that. Who would like to go next? Okay, Mohit's pointing to you, Russell. So I think you're nominated.
Yeah, of course he did. Happy birthday, Ed. Gosh, there's so many things that have stayed with me, but I think I shared with you that even as far back as December, you know, I was helping Mohit, helping out through Mohit's sales meeting, and I used a lot of, you know, the learnings from this class to, you know, guide the discussion, and it was very powerful, and it was amazing and very productive, and I think it had lasting impact in many ways because it was an eye opener. So thank you for all the great exercises. I just want to point out from a everyday perspective, I find that the exercises that you guide us on these sessions are probably, to me at least, some of the most powerful because they help us internalize the material that we're reading and internalize the discussions and make them, personalize them. So that's been really, I think that's really stayed with me. Wanted to echo a lot of what Ambika said. I feel like everything has been said, but what I wanted to focus in on or hone in on as far as what's been important for me, what I take away is the reinforcement of relationships, the value of relationships. How like you pointed out how even in BT Swami's book, he says that, success in any endeavor is 80% relationships, 20%, tactical and so forth. That's something that, I'm a caring person, that whole, personality trait thing, I'm a caring person. Throughout my existence, I felt like I've always been, let's just say, seen as a weak person because of my focus on caring as being, probably my number one priority. And so, as we were just talking about, having these discussions and the idea that being a servant, caring for others is actually a strong point and not a weakness has been really transformational for me as I've, been, I've basically taken a sabbatical and moving to this path of retirement and stuff like that. So there's been a lot of digestion of my 25-year career in sales and everything that's happened, leadership and all that kind of stuff. And so the processing aspect, combined with this class has been fantastic for me personally in terms of being able to come to terms with who I am as a person, what my values are, and actually what a beautiful thing it's been that I've been on this path, that I've been focused on others, that I've been really, looking at business at, everything I do from a caring perspective, caring for others perspective. And that is actually been effective for me. So without rambling, I just wanted to focus in on the aspect of, Sambandha relationships being, an amazing reminder for me that this is truly, the servant leadership, the whole relationship part is really what matters and how you can really impact people's lives rather than just make money or, accomplish a goal. You want to be able to do it in a way that impacts people's lives in a positive and makes them feel valued, elevates them and so forth. And the only way to do that is to really take an interest in people, care for them and take responsibility for them and help develop them. And that takes so much out of a person, which is why a lot of people don't like to do that. But for me, I find that that's been, a natural, something that, gives me a lot of, satisfaction, but also the whole aspect of reciprocation, the whole aspect of giving back, the whole aspect of, tying that all into gratitude has been, really amazing. So I'll end there. I'll point this way.
No,
But just before Mohit, I mean, again, really to tap into what you shared. So I really like the point that you made a connection between the practical activities and internalizing something. I know that BT Swami, and this is one thing, I was actually doing some research on this or making some reflective notes on this. Yeah, I find that one of the most exciting things is when we can transform, and that, as you said, is about internalizing. And so therefore we have the wisdom, we have some kind of process that allows it to go a bit deeper into us. And also as we start to, as you said, embody it, internalize it, then we become a different person. So that really stood out to me. And I also found great strength in what you were sharing about accepting that we're caring people, and that's necessary, it's very useful, and it can transform people, but also recognizing that it's not a weakness. I think that's really, really important. And I think that what we have in the world right now is that many people will start off like that, but they may shut down that caring tendency if it's ridiculed, criticized, undervalued, etc. But it's so necessary. I'm a big believer that we have to be ourselves. We have to be the best version of ourselves, and we have to see, right, who am I, right? Not just, you know, not just making things up, but what's my inherent value system? What's my need? How do I naturally orientate myself in the world? And then how do I situate myself so that positive comes out in a really healthy way? And I think Ronnie talked about this. And also, if there are areas that I need to complement with other things, let me find other people who can do that, but who don't minimize what I can bring, you know? And I think that sometimes that's where things go wrong, where it's like either it's just you should be executing or you should be caring. It's like, well, I can bring the caring element and maybe I'm good at execution as well, but maybe you can do the execution element and you're very strong in that area, so let's work together, you know? But it requires that, I've seen in my own career, that it requires that maturity of people who can value what each person brings. And if we're not a bit more evolved as people, what tends to happen is one side or the other will think that whatever I bring, that's important, and whatever other people bring, that's not really a big deal. But it's the maturity and the humility to value what each person can do and say, let's put it all together and do great things. So I very much appreciate that point. And I love the last point you made about how we can help people grow by taking an interest in them. I mean, I don't think we can underestimate the value of people really showing that another person is valued, cared for, recognized. And I've seen it really does have a transformative effect on the person. So yeah, thank you.
Just one last thing is another reflection that I've had, you know, based on this class on the value of relationships is, you know, your career, money, all that kind of stuff. It's amazing, like, you know, when you don't have the title, when you don't have the, let's just say, you know, the money or whatever it is, that sort of outward recognition anymore. It's amazing how people just drop you like a hot potato, right? But if you've created that relationship, if you've worked on the relationship, that's forever. So I'm noticing, like, you know, in my, you know, my circle of friends, if you will, even my network and so forth, even though I've, you know, taken a step back and moving out of it, I find that those relationships are still staying because what they remember is that I cared for people, that I, you know, took care of them, or I, you know, helped them out, or whatever it is. Those things stay forever. So I just wanted to point that out, that has such a bigger effect than we can imagine, and that's what stays after everything's gone.
Yeah, just on that point, I did a presentation for Shell. This was many years ago, the oil company, and the presentation was about networking. And the presentation was based upon a book, which I think one friend of mine had told me about. And I bought the book in New York, actually, when I was visiting many, many years ago. And the book was called Never Eat Alone. And the author of the book was, his name is Keith Ferrazzi. And so in the book, I mean, he talks about the value of networking, and it speaks to what you're saying, Rasa. Basically, what I've seen it, and he talks about this, there are some people, they're so incredibly successful because they're able to network, but it's more than networking. It's, you know, some people, they'll do it superficially, but these people, when they network, their heart's in it. There's a genuine interest in people. And so you can have people networking, and one group are like, I think Ricken's good at this. He'll network, very authentic person who's networking. Some people will network and it's just like, you know, I've got a list of names. I'm gonna flatter you because I want something. And after a while, people who move in those circles, they can pick that up. Then you've got someone else who's networking and there's a genuine desire to connect, and they're connecting from the heart. That immediately has more power. So yes, they're going to have outcomes that they want to achieve, but it's not just transactional. There's also a genuine interest, and they tend to be more successful in networking because people feel the authenticity, that the genuine care, the genuine interest, and all of that stuff. It makes for not just longer lasting relationships, you've got length of time, but it also makes for deeper relationships of trust. So it's a major ability or skill to have, you know, and it's useful everywhere. Let's be honest. Whatever field you're in, unless you're achieving everything just by yourself, which is more than, you know, which is not really likely, then how you're able to connect with people is huge. It's huge. Yeah. Anyway, let's go over to Mohit. You wanted to share your reflections, Mohit.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. For me, it's the biggest benefit that I received from, being invited to this, and I really do appreciate being part of this group. And so I sincerely want to thank you guys for including us and want to listen to our garbage at times. So what I've really gotten out of this is it's going back to really sometimes bringing freshness, because I do manage teams and sometimes it gets very repetitive. And so to be able to have a time in a week where we can reflect and really look at it from a 20,000-foot view about, the different ways we should be motivating, inspiring, leading, and really transforming ourselves, just like what Rasa was saying. So, she's had a chance to reflect and really hone in on what works and what doesn't work. When you're in the fray, sometimes you don't have those opportunities and you're just trying to get the job done and get the numbers, especially when you're leading a sales organization. So transactional, the word you use, right? It's very transactional based. However, you need this type of forum to be able to figure out, okay, so I know it's transactional, but how are we going to get there, right? Type of thing. And so this is what this forum provides for me, is that 20,000-foot view. And in case in point, what some of the things that I had Rasa implement in our sales meetings was two things that I think really resonated with people too, which was the 5 dimensions of trust. So we did that for our entire team at the sales meeting in December. And first of all, it broke up the normal business, if you will. And people started to understand that, hey, there's a thought process that goes into this team structure, right? So that was really, really impactful for me, because it was so amazing to find out, like, the people that report directly to me, what are some of the things that are important to them? And like care was a big component. And for me, just to let you know, for my own, care is at the bottom. So the connection for me there was, okay, you have to, whether it may not be important to you, but it's important to other people. And I've consciously tried to do that in the last few months. So
Opposites attract.
opposites attract, right? So that's that. And then also I really enjoyed the the Google experiment, the 5 key characteristics of a good team, and so because I do manage teams, that's very, very important to me. Understand, like, what makes a team more effective than not. And yeah, exactly, Rick. So those are the two, probably the main takeaways. But if we haven't been involved, I think we started late last fall or whatever, and we're really enjoying the just the journey that this group takes in different directions. Some are more applicable than others, but really what stays consistent is the fact that we're constantly reflecting. And so one Friday may not resonate, but you find out 2 Fridays later, like, oh wow, this was an eye-opener and I needed it. I needed it. So thank you.
Excellent. Who would like to go next?
I don't mind sharing.
Sure.
So there's, as everyone has said, there's been so many different things that have been discussed. I've just been reviewing my notes, but I'll go back to Ed, something we were talking about a few weeks ago when you were talking about this model for human excellence, and you described the compassion, clarity, and character. And when I looked at just my leadership style and recent situations, I found it's probably something that I knew really deep inside, but it came out was that sometimes I will lack this real objective and realistic clarity that's needed. And for me, it's been a complete game changer. And once you bring it to the forefront and you really bring this, identified as a weakness, it really can change the lens by which you look at every situation. And it's really just been a journey for me in being honest with myself in the situation that's around me. So it's led me down, a rabbit hole where I've been exploring, if everyone's heard of like coping stances by Virginia Satir, and she talks about different types of coping stances under stress and understanding what mine are under stress. And again, just shining this light of being more objective and realistic. And it requires some brutal honesty, but for me, it's been such a change in the way I look at everything. And it also just ties to this, BT Swami talks about this point. There's a section called being too nice in leadership. And so I've been really reflecting on this point that there's a difference between being nice and kind.
Yeah.
And really trying to see what does, where's the difference between nice and kind in our day-to-day life, because we should be striving to be more kind, and oftentimes I'll fall into the trap of being nice. And so I wanted to just really share how these 2 points, when we don't have that objectivity and this being realistic, and again, just it's a facet of not always being just brutally honest, that we can fall into this area of being nice versus kind. So I wanted to share that as a really big takeaway, and just a point that I've been applying for myself on a very regular basis since it came out.
Thank you. So so what we were reminded of from you, Rikin, was that we shared this model for human excellence. We talked about basically the head, the heart, and then also the truth. So that's compassion is really the heart, character is the head or the integrity. And then Rikin, you were talking about clarity, which is just being really honest. What's actually going on, right? What's the reality of what I'm dealing with, even if it's not always so pleasant. And then if I know that, then we can actually start to address it in the right way. So yeah, I really appreciate that. I also wanted to get that reference again. You talked about a book called Coping Stances by Virginia. What was the surname?
Yeah. So I'll put it in the chat. Coping Stances. I'll just quickly explain it, but every situation, it has 3 components. It has the self, it has the other, and it has a circumstance. Mm-hmm. And it's really easy because you can map out each situation and look at it and reference these 3. But the different coping stances are, if you're a blaming if you have a tendency to blame, then you're very you ignore you ignore like the self and the circumstance, and you're focusing on the self. There's the other coping senses if you intellectualize situations, so you're aware of the circumstance, but you tend to ignore the self and the other. And then there is the placating coping sense, where you ignore the self, but and you're more aware of the other and the circumstance. So in every type of stance, you are basically, there's a blind spot of one other area, or sorry, one or two other areas, and you're focusing in on one.
Very, very interesting. Thank you. Very interesting model as well. Christina, did you want to share anything? She's there.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, just due to technical difficulties, joined very late, so I missed probably all the first parts. Just joined by sharing of Rasa and Mohit, so missed out the.
That's okay. That's okay. I'll just let you know what we were sharing. All we were asking people is if they wanted to share anything throughout the whole course so far that they've been reflecting on. It could be a theme, it could be a detail, it could be a technique, or if there's anything that they've been practically applying which they found to be particularly significant for them. So that's really where we were sharing. So is there anything that you would like to share in regards to that, Christine?
I probably just to be shortly, just like by me personally, just this applying or just starting applying of those tools we were going through with really like getting clear of values and everything. It just I'm in the process of dramatic shifts. So because I just like probably just as shortly as I was seeing situation, but accepting it or just explaining it differently. And I came to the point where I just re-questioning everything, and it's not that easy process. So I'm like a work in progress, let's say like this, but it just I just see it on the decisions or on the approach. It's dramatically changed your like how you see things. And yeah, at the moment, I almost again reviewing and redoing just for this totally new like a me inner values focused approach, yeah, which I was placing to somewhere as the last long time, yeah.
Wow, that's very, very interesting. So what you've talked about is applying the tools, and it's actually causing a real shift. And as you said, there's a dramatic, shift in terms of how you're seeing things, and it's like a long process of review. That's what you've been saying, correct?
Yes, I mean, it just like it's I was pretty like not a pretty sure, but you have your process, and I was taking it only as part of making decisions or just like understanding them, but probably not as a core of, yeah, so what I would recognize, like that I start from there. And the changes like are really like dramatic, I would say, and I just see the process, and it's very intensive, not easy. I just like, but I don't want to go back to status quo. So for me, it was like a mountain moving at the moment. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that sounds very, very like significant. Thank you for sharing that, Christina. I'm also conscious, so in terms of time left, Rikin, was there a particular section in the book? Should we just end with some reading? Like, what do you think? What would you recommend?
Sure. The last section we finished was we went back to the power of austerity, and then there was one section after that.
Okay, so why don't we just read? We can spend the next few minutes. I know, Ambika, we want to recognize you have to go soon. No problem. Should we just spend some time reading from that point onwards?
Yeah, sure. I'm just trying to find the last section.
I'm just gonna get my copy of the book.
Can everyone remember the last section that we read? I think it was. We read the section, the importance of character or building character. I know for sure because it was that you can buy clothes but not beauty. You can buy medicine but not good health. You can buy a house but not a home. You can buy people but not good friends. You can buy a temple but not God. So what section does everyone have after that? Let me just see. I'm coming. Oh yeah, so we're at the section character and community. I'm pretty sure we didn't read that part.
What page number?
I only have the PDF with me. Does it,
Okay.
Ambika, do you know what page the character and community? Can
You
you
are
just,
muted, Ambika. You're
Sorry.
muted.
I was speaking out loud. The new book is 175,
perfect.
Character in Community.
Okay.
Someone want to, Ambika, do you want to read?
I will have to jump off in a minute.
Sure.
So I probably won't be able to read
No
this, but
problem.
unfortunately, yeah.
Mohit or Rasa? Please.
Sure. So character community, Rikin, is that where we're at?
Yes.
Okay, finally, as we look at character in an institutional or communal setting, we realize that an important part of acting with integrity is being trustworthy no matter what. One of the greatest blows to productivity and higher consciousness is people's lack of trust of one another, and especially of their leaders. When several people in an institution are prepared to take on the role of the trustworthy, a real sense of community can be formed. In creating such an empowering environment, each person commits to honesty. Integrity engenders respect. There cannot be true love without respect in any case. We do not get along when we allow our own thoughts, feelings, and desires to become more important than defending truth and are concerned for others. If people are able to see truth constantly as a servant leader does, they will learn to see things as they actually are. As long as they do not seek truth and do not strive to develop strong character, our vision will remain clouded. Here's a wonderful
Yeah.
quote that, here's a
Please carry on.
wonderful quote. I'm sorry, would you like me to stop or continue?
No, please continue. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Carry on.
Oh, okay. Here's a wonderful quote that one of my colleagues who has been managing an institution in Japan for 15 years shared with me. Coming together is the beginning, keeping together is the progress, and working together is success. Healthy coming together is staying together and will only be successful if people attend to building strength of character, the father of all virtues. The Power of Character, edited by Michael Josephson and Wes Hansen, emphasizes that real power is not knowledge, but character. Here are 11 of their points. The great philosopher Heraclitus said, "A man's character is his destiny." Character is what a man chooses to do when the choice is not easy. Just as the destiny of an individual is determined by personal character, the destiny of an organization is determined by the character of the leadership. When leaders and individual employers have poor character, the organization will suffer. It is character that determines how effectively we use our knowledge and skills. It is character that determines how we respond to temptation. It is character that determines how we proceed in success or failure. It is not enough to even treat people well and use them well, but one must help people find meaning and fulfillment. This indicates a leader with good character. Our leaders must learn to lead beyond walls and must also learn to become leaders in the community, even to create community. It is not enough for a leader with excellent character to lead their own institution, but being loyal to their institution in its vision and progress, they should be able to give healthy stimulation to the progress of the community or of the society in general, especially in the environments in which they are interacting. Number 10, because of a lack of high character, we are now people who know the price of everything and the value of nothing. Can I read that again? Because of a lack of high character, we are now people who know the price of everything and the value of nothing. Number 11, everything can be taken away from you, but only you can give away your integrity and good character. Integrity and good characters are the window into the soul. Wow. Also in the Daily America Told the Truth by James Peterson and Peter Kim, there are some astounding facts that make us ask, quote, what has happened to integrity in America? This book shows how character and integrity have been de-emphasized. Here are some of the statistics offered in the book. 90% or 9 out of 10 Americans lie regularly. Moral fiber in the nation is seriously deteriorating. 86% of the people lie to their parents. 75% of the people lie to their friends. 73% of the people lie to their siblings. 69% of the people lie to their lovers. 61% of the people lie to their bosses. 59% of the people lie to their children. It's interesting that more people lie to their lovers than they do their bosses. That's interesting. All right. Shakespeare counseled us more succinctly, to thine own self be true. His point was quite profound, because when we are true to ourselves, it is easy to be true to others. We have low integrity because we are not first true to ourselves. This weakness extends itself into all of our relationships and throughout our institutions.
There's a lot in that section. There's so much there. So maybe let's unpack it. I know we've got a few minutes before people need to go. What are your reflections? I think it's such a powerful piece again to understand more about.
Yeah, Ed, if I may, I'm going through this in my organization right now, where I'm having a little bit of a turnover based on false premises. And And, you know, and you really start to question when you have some turnover in your team. It's like, okay, so I'm not meeting the expectations of individuals, right? And so what is going on? And you try to talk to people and really understand what the meaning is. And to me, what really stuck out is, I think, where does it say is people have to search for truth and character, I think, is that where what was? And that just kind of resonated with me because, and then it falls into the lying piece, right? So I don't think that people value truthfulness, character, integrity as much. And just because of a generational thing with me, I think we become so self-absorbed just through social media and all these different things that the paradigm of what a good environment or culture to work in is changing. And so for me, this is really a time for me to really introspect and really figure out, in the new world, how can you be productive and create these incredible team built on character and integrity, like V.T. Swami is talking about, in a culture that is becoming more self-centered. And so that's what really sticks out for me through this reading.
I just want to add something to that before. Actually, Ricky, you were going to say something, please.
No, go ahead, please.
It's just that because we had this discussion with a group of managers recently, because we were doing some work with them, and we were talking about generational differences. There is some research that says the younger generation, they actually don't want to work for organizations which they think are unethical, etc., etc. So you are seeing, it's almost like a polarity. Yes, on the one hand, absolutely a lot of narcissism. There's no question about it. Everything's a selfie. Everything's about what I'm doing. Here's me having breakfast. Here's me going to the bathroom. It's like, really, really, like. But and at the same time, there is also another dynamic that's there. I found that I think about this idea of, again, sambandha or relationship. I'm trying to think more and more, when I do something, who are the competent people who would also be able to perceive the value of what we're trying to give? You see, you can have some people who are competent, but they're cutthroat. So you having a culture of integrity and so on, they don't value that because they just want to kind of stab everyone in the back, make their money, and that's it. But that doesn't do well in the long term. I've tried to look at this. People can be tactical and they may get away with something in the short term, but now your reputation is damaged. Everyone knows that you're a bit too, harsh, rude, backstabbing. So in the short term, you get what you want, but as your reputation goes out, high-class people don't want to work with you. You see, so what people get away with by a short-term way of thinking, it can cause the same people tremendous difficulty in the mid to long term. So I guess it's also, what's our timeline for success, right? The thief, you may say, is successful in the short term, but does he get away with it in the mid to long term when he has to go to prison? So I think that's one factor. I also think it's a question of saying, look, this is what we're about. And we're looking for people who also value this as well, right? So this is what we want to give. And we're looking for competent people who also see the value of it. I honestly think that there are universal high quality values, and sometimes people don't go into it because they're immature, to be very honest. So sometimes people may not see the value of what you're giving until they get burnt, right? Let's say you have someone who's got no experience, integrity, I don't care about that. But when their manager starts putting his name on their work, when they get fired unceremoniously, when they're told to suck it up even though they're being mistreated, then suddenly it's like, oh, I remember that Mohit said that in their company, it's about values and integrity. And it's like, why didn't I go for them? So I think we have to recognize some people are more in ignorance. Some people are very passionate. Some people are a bit more ethical, moral, or in goodness. So we have to recognize that because different people have different levels of consciousness, for some people, what we have to offer, they may not be able to see how valuable it is. And what I've often seen is the more high class a person is in terms of consciousness, I'm not talking about social and economic class, but the more mature and refined an individual is, the more that they appreciate a high class environment. So I think it's also a question of who's going to resonate with my offering. You know, rather than trying to make it bargain basement for everyone, it's actually saying, well, we are high class. We're not, we are Harrods or Gucci. We're not Walmart, So if someone wants Walmart, that's okay. That's, but that's another brand. But what we're offering is we're offering Gucci. We're offering the high end of leadership. And so we're looking for people who can resonate with that. And to be honest, it may also mean that it takes a bit longer to find the right people, right? Because not everyone is going to be able to, to buy Gucci, Louis Vuitton, whatever, but it's a question of what's my offering in the market. And then if I know it's a high end offering, I've got to do a bit more work to find the high end people who appreciate the high end offering, but then you can do something really fantastic together. So that's my reflection on that.
It's definitely a mode of goodness approach where you're patient in the beginning to wait for quality to come through, rather than, I think, what happens oftentimes in the work world, with realistic pressures of, we have to try to fill positions and, put warm bodies in situations where it's not exactly the best fit. I can see how, though, that approach sometimes can be probably a little bit wearing, because it requires a great amount of patience to see, to wait for the people to come that, our offering resonates with. But it ultimately, like, again, it just goes back to, trying to fish out the quality over the quantity.
Can I just add one thing to Ricken's point, which I think is absolutely correct? The older I get, I'll be honest with you, the older I get, the more I'm thinking about this strategically. And what I see as a pattern is, if I know that what I'm offering is high end, then there's a natural conclusion from that. That means it's going to be fewer people, right? Therefore, I need to start that search earlier, wider, but more expansively, because there's going to be less people who can fit that niche. You see, so everything has its implications. And I think, so my wife has a friend, and she's looking to get married, and we can see that she's got a very, very great character, exceptional character. So therefore, my wife and I were talking to her that because of the kind of person you are, it's not that any guy is gonna do us a good partner for you, right? Therefore, the natural implication is you should start early to look, because the kind of person that's gonna fit you is not your everyday guy. You see, that there's an implication. It means you're gonna have to start search a bit wider and a bit more, and you have to also even think strategically, where would the kind of person who would fit me, where are they gonna be hanging out? What kind of environments are they gonna be in? So what can be a longer term, may take more effort, you can also narrow that down by being more strategic. You see, the more you're strategic, the more you are focused, and therefore it can actually reduce the amount of time to find what you need. Like, I'll be honest with you, we have there's a friend of mine, and he was looking to get married, and what I realized is he'd allowed a friend of his to look for a partner to suggest some women, who could be a good partner. But what he hadn't done was he hadn't told his friend, look, this is what I'm looking for. Look for someone like that. So his friend will bring him loads of different potential partners. What about her? But because most of them weren't aligned with the kind of person he is, then it's like you've been given 10 names, but 90% of those names are not compatible with you anyway. So in reality, it's only one person on that list of 10 that was a real potential. You see, so what happens when you strategize? Strategy, it gives you focus, and because it gives you focus, it makes you more efficient. It drives up efficiency and effectiveness, right? So let's say you're looking for someone who's got a niche skill. Rather than just throwing out the job description and seeing who comes, you should throw out the job description and go to all of your other friends in the industry who deal with people with that niche skill. So now you're throwing out the net, but in specific areas where they're likely to know that job, that someone with that expertise. You see, so strategy can actually counteract effort. Actually, the more strategic you are, the more each unit of effort is actually worth more, because it's a focused effort, right? As opposed to just effort. You see, that's the way the two things counteract each other. The more strategic you are, the less effort you need to get exactly what you're looking for. Yeah. In other words, the more you have sambandha, the more effective the more you have Sambandha, which is understanding of the field, which makes you focus, the less effort it requires to get to where you want to get to what you want to achieve. Yeah, that was just a thought. So any other reflections, comments?
Thank you for that. No, you got so interesting. You hit it on the head. It's when you're dealing with different modes of ignorance and passion and goodness, and when you're trying to cultivate goodness from a person who's in the ignorance or even in passion, it's not going to happen. And so I just love what you said, because I'm going to take that, and that's going to be my overarching theme for our team call on Monday, to talk about what type of people do we want on this team, and the fact that if there's turnover, that's actually the start. We know we're starting to cultivate a team, because this is an opportunity now for us to be bringing the people that share the same level of values, character, and actually high performance all wrapped in one. That's a hard, that's a very small needle to thread, right? It is this where they're high achievers, they're successful, but with integrity, and with some intellect and intelligence, they approach their subject matter. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I can do a seminar on this topic, because I teach that to leaders all the time. We talk to leaders about how they keep their talent pipeline warm. So the idea is that, let's say that you interviewed some people, and you interviewed 10 people, and you chose one because they were the best of the 10, but the others were really good. One of the things that we train leaders is stay in touch with the other good people. Once every 6 months, just drop them a message and let's just catch up on a Zoom call or have a coffee, because if they're good, then maybe later on, there wasn't a vacancy now, but maybe later on that other good person you can bring in. So what we train managers to do is keep an eye on talent that's in your organization now, but in different areas, and talent that's in other organizations or in the pool, because if you stay in touch with them, then later on, if a vacancy comes up, you already have those relationships, you already have that small minority of really high quality people that you can immediately bring in. So it's a strategy. Sorry, Russ, you were going to say something.
Oh, no, sorry. I was actually going to add to it, but from a completely different standpoint. So I'm not changing the subject, but I just wanted to add to what he was saying. So he's been going through a lot with this, transitions on his team, and, just tying it into what we just read on the idea of character. I was just reading Bhishma's last instruction to Yudhishthira on managing the kingdom. This really stood out for me. It comes with the explanation that ultimately all things will be left behind. It is only dharma and character that follow us out of this life. So basically, at the end of the day, and I take this as a life lesson for me, is, you should be doing what you should be doing regardless of who's watching, right? Because dharma and character are what follow you out of this life. So no matter, even if your team's Walmart quality and you're approaching it from the Gucci, high character, high values approach, even if they're not reciprocating, even if they're, not valuing what you're putting out there, even if they're not appreciating anything that you're doing and so forth, even if let's just say your character and your values fall flat on your team, you should still go ahead and do it, because it's your dharma and it's also, your character. And that's what really counts at the end of the day. So just kind of wanted to add that to the discussion, that even when you're going through difficult times, or even when your team is, not following in line with, the type of culture, the type of values that you're trying to impart, and you're working so hard to do that, because I see him, he's working so hard to impart character. He really teaches, people how to fish, and they don't appreciate that. They, literally take, all of this, new knowledge and experience and so forth that he's worked so hard to instill in people, and they literally, don't even thank him and just take it to the next place, because now that they're, better for it, if you will, they feel like, they can go anywhere and accomplish things without giving back. You know what I mean? And it's normal. It's very immature, young approach to things. But it does wear on the manager because you've, spent all that time giving of yourself, caring for others in that sense to, develop them. And so, this really stood out for me because, when you feel empty that you've done all this thing and all of this and you've given so much and there's no reciprocation, there's no appreciation, it's just like gone. The idea is that, your own character, your own dharma, the fact that you've, stood by everything and that you've given of yourself is what really counts.
That's powerful.
Yeah,
That's
no,
very
thank you
powerful.
for that. And I think I heard the message really loud and clear. It's where you invest.
Yeah.
Because if you invest in the wrong things,
the wrong people.
disappointment is corner.
Yeah. So I would just add that, it's doing the right thing always. And I really love that point, Rasa. I've seen that also in my own life. It's doing the right thing with the right people, if at all possible, and the reason why I say that is because we also don't want to reinforce selfishness. If people are cutthroat, then what happens is they think, because they may take what you have to give cheaply, and if you're giving diamonds, you don't want them to take it cheaply. So if they don't appreciate diamonds, then you shouldn't stop selling diamonds, but you may want to sell it to people who can appreciate, wow, this is like, wow, this is first class, like that, because then the offering can expand. If they appreciate what you're giving, then they can actually give even more, because now it's appreciated. Now we share it even more. So it doesn't become like a black hole where you contribute a lot, it's just sucked in, and then there's no reciprocation. Does that make some sense?
Oh my God, it's spot on. It's the next paradigm in my career almost. I think what I need to do is just absolutely to say, okay, so here I've been offering this, like the highest ends, like you said, diamonds, to people who really are looking for, silver, really.
Yeah.
And now is my opportunity to actually align myself with people who want those diamonds. And then the people who are already in the company to raise their level to say, hey, this is totally okay, because we are creating something that is profound. And we don't want your average person to come in here and take part in this because they're not really qualified to be able to handle the messaging that we have.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
No, thank you. It's always about compatibility, the compatibility between what you're offering and the audience. See, for example, like Gucci or Louis Vuitton, if they're offering a high-end product, they're not selling it in the ghetto, right? They're selling it where people who can afford and who will appreciate that where they live. So there has to be a relationship between the caliber of what you're offering, and especially if it's your dharma, like Russell, you were saying, if this is something you're meant to do, then it's even more important that you do it in a way that you're able to make that offering to the wider society, because even if some of these immature people can't appreciate it, if you offer it, then someone who's smart will think, wow, that's incredible, So it's finding the right audience for your gift. Sometimes people will tell you, if the audience don't like it, change your offering. Sometimes, if it's not your dharma, but if it's your dharma, you don't change your offering, you change the audience. That's it. There was an interview I saw with Steve Jobs, and it was one of the other, there were some of the other co-founders, and they were being interviewed. And someone said to him, "Well, your products, aren't they very expensive?" And he said, "Actually, our products are competitive. If you look at what we're actually giving," he said, "but the thing about us is we can't sell rubbish." He said that our integrity doesn't allow us to do it. We can't sell poor quality stuff. So, if people want poor quality stuff, that's okay. There's other suppliers who can do that, right? But that's not who we are. And I think, but when I see this lesson that I had to go through some lesson in this area, it ultimately came down to identity. Who am I, right? And then as Rasa's point, so who am I? Now I know who I am. What am I meant to be offering? Then I made that offering, and then it was like linked to that. It's like, who is this offering for? Who's the audience who can appreciate this offering? And then finding that, and often it's high end, and I think that with all of us, the group, the consciousness is of a certain caliber. Have you noticed that, right? The consciousness is of a certain caliber. So we may not vibe so well with people who are a bit more rough and unrefined. or don't appreciate what we have to offer. We may vibe more with people like a bit more high end, like, oh, right, I appreciate this, the subtlety of what you're offering, the culture that you're creating, the value system, and that's okay. But it's like, right, that's our audience. Those are the people who would resonate with us. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I was just gonna add really quick reflection on what you just said too, is that we may not understand how things work, but I truly believe that even if you're selling diamonds to Walmart customers
Mhm.
and it's not the right fit and people leave and so forth, you may not know how that's impacted their life. You might have actually uplifted that person to eventually become a diamond aficionado, from a Walmart customer, early in life. And they may not never thank you for that, but that's the impact that you've had in the world. That was your offering, as you said, to, to God, to humanity and so forth. And that's what stays, even if you don't know it, that that's happening regardless, because that's the impact that diamonds will have out there. So I've always tried to keep that close to my heart, because I've also run into, in leadership management, there's so much lack of appreciation. I don't know if it's everywhere, but here in the US, people just don't appreciate things here. And it feels like, like you're constantly, what have you done for me lately? What are you doing wrong? Rather than, oh, thank you for this, or thank you for taking the long-term approach, taking an interest, caring for me, and so forth. So it's just so, short-term focus. As I know you've mentioned that many times. A lot of, the culture here in the US is very short-term, results-oriented.
Yeah, Rasa, even if I can define it
Yeah.
a little bit more, I would say it's more about, I want to accomplish things on my own. I can do it.
Yeah.
You know how you had mentioned that, hey, your success is reliant on many people. Like, and if you think otherwise, you're missing the point. And that's kind of where we're at, I think. I see the ethos, if you will, of America as, and it's a double-edged sword, right? And it's a really good thing that I can do it. And then it turns into kind of a really big challenge, because that's truly not true.
Yeah.
So,
And also burn the people that help you get there,
or don't
or
appreciate it.
don't appreciate,
Yeah.
or forget, or whatever it is. And, long story short is I just wanted to bring it back to the idea that, even if you don't see the results, even if you don't see the impacts that you're creating, when you're putting diamonds out there, there is going to be positive results regardless of what's happening. And you have to always keep that in mind. Keep
That's a
selling
great-
diamonds.
Wow, this is a nice therapy session along with some business.
No, but that's so powerful.
you.
Even what you said is so powerful to keep people going, especially when they don't necessarily see immediate results or external reciprocation in the environment. It's a great point. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
I really appreciate you guys taking the time. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
And this is practical advice I'm going to put in play. So thank you.
Rick, and you're going to say something?
No, I was just saying we should just wrap there. A good point to end on. Keep selling diamonds is our
Keep
takeaway
selling
message.
diamonds.
I made note of that for myself, because if you remember from last week, we made the connection between when they were talking about, our thoughts become our words become our actions, and that kind of trail. But then it ended up being the character becomes our destiny. And so, Rasa, you pretty much reiterated that in the last instruction of Bhishma Dev. So it was a nice connection to that. And I think, this is the journey of life, is to, try to offer diamonds and be of high character, even when it's not popular or it's difficult. It's really our journey in, it's really the journey of the spiritualist.
Yeah,
So beautiful, you guys.
excellent. Thank you.
Servant leaders.
Yeah, thank you for a
Thank you.
wonderful session as always. Thank you, Christina, for sharing as well. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And Christina, we look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, me
Yeah,
as
yeah, looking
well.
forward.
everybody.
Yeah.